Sherlock Holmes is a famous literary detective created by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle in 1886. I know shockingly little about this character. I haven't even seen the Iron Man and Doctor Strange versions. Sure, I'm familiar with a lot of the parodies out there like this mouse, and I have vague memories of an animated Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century.
I liked when Data dressed up as him, but I couldn't really tell you much about the real fictional detective. So, hey Sherlock fans, I'm new here, and I decided to play Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1 as my formal intro to the character. Starting out, I decided to opt for the easier of the two difficulties. I know it's elementary school, my dear Watkins, but I never finished the 4th grade, so I wasn't feeling too confident. Also, I had no idea what to expect with combat, and
He needs some milk!
we'll get to that. We find our titular hero on a boat arriving at the city of Cordona, not Greece. Cordona isn't a real-life city, so it's free to have British, Ottoman, and Italian flavors. I don't know if this is a city that exists canonically in the Sherlock Holmes fiction of old, but I guess it does now. It's a nice-looking town. Sometimes it's downright picturesque. It's a good contrast to the backdrop of what I imagine most Sherlock stories are set against: foggy, dreary London. This works because it seems like this is definitely a younger take on the character. Younger character, bright and sunny surroundings. Clearly, we're set up for a fresh and maybe even naive Holmes. How's that for a deduction? It's also obvious from Sherlock's outfit that this ain't your great-great-great-granddaddy's Holmes. I wasn't here for the lead-up and release of this game, but I imagine this character design was considered blasphemous to some of the hardcore fans. I can't say I'm a big fan of his fashion choice either. Too many chains and straps and pouches. One sleeve up? It's definitely more contemporary. I mean, I certainly wouldn't walk in dressed like that at the Drinking Dutchman. We're also introduced to Sherlock's companion, John. My first thought at seeing this character, because I'm a simpleton, was, that can't be Watson. Where's his mustache and bowler? That got me thinking, was this a bait and switch for fans? Or was it like clear from the get-go that Watson is not here? You figure this out early, so I don't consider it a spoiler, but John's not a real person. He exists only in the mind of Sherlock. So I started to wonder, was this character teased as the new Watson? Like, in the lead-up to this game's release, what were the fan theories? Was this a new take on the character, where Watson is an imaginary friend of Sherlock? They are both named John. I thought about looking up old threads and forum discussions, but
I can't be fucked.
But because he's not real, I know in the back of my mind that this isn't a real back and forth like what I imagine an actual Watson would be like. John knows what Sherlock knows. He sees what Sherlock sees. His advice can never be too illuminating because at the end of the day, he's just another part of Sherlock's mind. John noticing evidence is just Sherlock noticing evidence and then running it through the John filter in his brain. The relationship works well enough, but I found myself ignoring him a lot.
Give him the pepper snuff. Give him the pepper snuff. Give him the pepper snuff.
The pair arrive at the hotel, and before they can even partake in the complimentary
Marlin ceviche.
Sherlock finds himself wrapped up in people's problems. It's also here where we meet a very important character, Vernon Vogel. Vogel is a local artist, critical thinker, and glasses enthusiast. Most of the meat of Sherlock's character is on display in conversations with this guy.
Perhaps you'd care to have your portrait drawn while you wait?
Why? Pardon me? Why should I sit for a portrait?
Sir,
It's art. It doesn't need a why. It is its own justification. All things require justification, be they objects, systems, or beliefs.
how about art as the lens through which we see the truth of the world?
That's backward. Truth is not subjective and not complicated. It's just the truth. It either is or it isn't. You do not need a lens to see it, just an open mind.
Ha! That seems rather close-minded. Truth, like beauty, is in the eye of the beholder. So tell me, what do you see?
Mediocrity.
Yeah, maybe file him in your casebook as frenemy. The real tutorial formally kicks off with a fun little stolen diamond case. Well, it started off fun. Here we learn the basics of evidence gathering, witness testimony, and crime scene recreation, etc., etc. This is the bulk of the gameplay. Yeah, you might have some variations here and there, but for the most part you'll be scanning environments and accusing ne'er-do-wells of crimes. Just be sure to pin your evidence. Let's say, for example, a witness left the high heel from their shoe behind. In order to follow their trail, you have to pin the corresponding evidence from the casebook. This is not a suggestion. This is mandatory. There are plenty of times I found myself lost and confused despite knowing exactly what I was looking for. The game is not afraid to be specific. When I ask an NPC something, pin the question. Follow the blood trail? Pin it. Remember what happened at City Hall 10 years ago? You guessed it. This isn't a gripe per se, but it's something you have to be aware of if you want to avoid frustration. The most interesting part of the casebook, however, is the Mind Palace. This is where all that searching and pinning comes together. Following the nodes to different deductions is pretty damn satisfying. I found myself checking every possible combination just to see the possibilities. Was it the husband or the ghost whisperer? Were they justified? You don't even need to give your information to the cops. You can let the guy go if you want. Snitches get stitches. The truth is subjective, right, Vogel? Regardless of how you prefer your justice served, we're free to move on to the real reason Sherlock is in Cordona. 10-ish years ago, Sherlock's mother died after a prolonged illness. Holmes hasn't been back since the funeral and finds himself lacking closure.
And what is closure? Mere proximity?
Understanding. Acceptance.
You didn't understand from afar. You had to come here to accept the truth of her death?
Of course I understand. She died of consumption, drowning in her own blood.
Your mother?
Yes, my mother.
Yep, he's here too. He left your mother's locket on her grave for you to find. Not suspicious at all. It's here the final bit of my limited Sherlock knowledge popped up. Hat, pipe, Watson, Moriarty? Based solely on pop culture, I had assumed Moriarty was like an arch nemesis of Sherlock. Maybe not in a cartoony Megatron way, but in a pops up occasionally like Blofeld in James Bond way. Maybe Moriarty wrote Spectre. Author of all my pain indeed.
Cuckoo.
Anyway, emotional torment seemed like it would fit into the wheelhouse of that kind of character. I mean, what else would you call this? He even suggests that Holmes' mother may have been murdered, challenging what Sherlock has believed for the last 10 years.
I must have been misinformed. I'd heard otherwise.
Otherwise than consumption?
No, you'd know better than I. I'd heard talk of a police investigation, but Cordona is a notorious gossip. And what does it matter? She's passed on either way.
She has.
His true motivations are revealed later, but I realize now that I way overthought this character. This possible revelation leads us to the police station to check the crime records. Only problem is the records room is locked because this old lady can't describe who robbed her store. The officer takes the only reasonable course of action, locking himself in the records room to cross-reference every robbery ever, I guess? Sherlock is able to get a description of the criminal by playing dress-up until his outfit matches the person she saw. This is our disguise tutorial, and introduction to the class identity system. You see, the way Sherlock dresses will influence who's willing to talk to you. Mr. Fancy Pants won't stop for you on the street if you don't wear your wealth. Meanwhile, the criminal underworld won't deal with you if you're giving off that big narc energy. It's necessary from time to time for certain cases and interactions, but for the most part you're free to be as under or over dressed as you want. You can even play dress up with John. Back at the police station, the records room is open. Here we're given the records tutorial. Tutorials are almost done, I swear. There are actually 3 locations to research records: the local PD, the local newspaper, and City Hall. They all work the same way. Find the criteria and what you're looking for, check 3 of them, and hope that's good enough. Usually this is followed by checking your map and finding the correct street address. Geez, what's with all the detective work? It can be a little bit tedious to search the map while tilting your head to read the street names, but really it's not much of a problem. There's fast travel, but for your first time to a location, it's probably best to just hoof it all the way there. It's the best way to hear rumors or read posters for additional cases. These records, however, leave more questions than answers. The case file is empty. Vogel was right. There is more than meets the eye here. The police station is also where we get our introduction to combat. Here we find simultaneously the worst and most hilarious part of the game. The basics are this: shoot the glowy weak spots on the bad guy, stun the bad guy, hilariously slap, kick, or bonk the bad guy into submission via QTE. Rinse and repeat until you've embarrassed 10 or 12 grown men, and you get to move on. It is skippable if you want, and God knows I did sometimes, but occasionally I play them out for fun. Like this one. Sorry, Mycroft, I know I wasn't supposed to get involved, but I couldn't resist beating off all these men. Unfortunately, combat leads me to the elephant in the backyard. This game got some jank. I am certainly not a stickler for graphics, especially for a game like this. I'm here for the cases and the story. But I can't deny that the character models and animations are less than perfect. Characters can be a bit plasticky, lip sync is hit or miss. NPCs are fine at a glance, but you're gonna see some repeats. Some of them even work next door to each other. It's clear this is a limitation to budget and development time, not lazy. I didn't run into too many bugs, really. Sometimes the audio and voice lines will cut out like half a second early. It just hits the ear. The voice performances and soundtrack, though, are both slam dunks. There's an attention to detail and clear love of the character here. Whether or not it's always pretty is debatable.
Come on, pal.
I want nothing to do with you. In my entire
Nobody
life,
wants you up here.
I want
Move out
nothing
the
to
room.
do
I'll
with
move
you.
myself. I'll move
Do you want me to touch your?
Go ahead. I'll put your on fire.
Don't touch my.
What I said, dude.
Enough's enough already.
What's not debatable is the state of the Holmes Manor. It's been a long 10-ish years or so, and most of the furniture has been auctioned off to the local merchants. And they're twins. That doesn't stop Sherlock from recovering some memories, though, from his time on Cordona. This is the formula between story cases. Move the story along, come back to the manor, remember what happened the fateful final day of Violet Holmes. Rinse and repeat until you learn the truth. In between that stuff is the side content. Like I mentioned before, you can fix up the joint. There's also plenty of sleuthing to do. Smaller cases, memories, scavenger hunts, finding your lost coin collection. Some of it's pretty great. Other stuff like coin collecting?
I can't be fucked.
I don't know, I mean, maybe there's a good reward for that, but I'll never know. I'm here to solve mysteries. Maybe fire up some civil disorder while dressed as a woman. I can't really go on without talking about the story and cases, so spoiler warning from here on out. Now, if that's a deal breaker, just know that yeah, I think this game's worth a look, especially on sale, so give it a shot.
Why are you wearing a dress?
Back at the home school for gifted youngsters, Sherlock remembers that his eccentric neighbor, Theodore Gilden, was friends with his mother. Maybe he knows something about her condition. Well, he probably did know, but the part of his brain that remembers that kind of stuff is stuck to the back foot of the elephant he kept in his backyard. This is our first main story case, a gilded cage. What follows is pretty routine for the game so far. Interview his daughter, talk to the daughter's boyfriend, talk to his co-worker, track down the elephant, learn that Holmes has hydrophobia. Yeah, that one was a new one for me. It's just so jarring when it happens. You don't wake up on shore, it takes you all the way back to the nearest fast travel rickshaw. For a while I thought that Sherlock Holmes was like known for this. Same way Indiana Jones is afraid of snakes.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
And James Bond is afraid of monogamy. Apparently this is just a game thing. I guess to hand wave why we can't swim around. Anyway, the case itself is fun to unravel, but the real interesting part of it is its final deductions. Up until this point, it's been pretty clear who the culprit was at the end of a case. The side cases are mostly straightforward, And in the tutorial case, the Ghostbuster will even admit that you got him if you deduce it correctly. This time, however, things are a bit more muddy. You basically have two suspects, with means and motive, or a third option. The elephant just went nuts and killed its owner. The latter seems unlikely, as when you find said elephant, he has a dart in his side that contained poison, strychnine. Common for rats, not strong enough to kill an elephant, but it would cause him to panic and smear your neighbor across the ground. The cutscene for blaming the elephant, though, is absolutely hilarious. It's so dramatic. No other suspect gets anything like this. Oh yeah, by the way, there's a chemistry minigame to identify chemicals and whatnot. I skipped it basically every time. Anyway, our two suspects, Paul and Arthur, both have possible motives, and, more importantly, have the aforementioned darts in their possession. Both claim to use it for killing rats. Both knew the elephant was dangerous. Both have elbow bruises, possibly placing them at the scene. That's kind of where the investigation stalls. You're left with 6 possible outcomes. Was Vogel right? Maybe truth really is relative. Who do you want to blame? Who deserves to pay for this crime? Paul is smuggling drugs. That's illegal, sure, but it's not murder. Arthur would probably have loved to have been in total control of the dig site, but he's not the one funding it. Without Gilden's money, the whole thing is going to grind to a halt eventually. It's not really in anyone's best interest to just outright kill him. And yeah, everyone seemed to think the elephant was dangerous, but who shot it with a poisoned dart? Who got thrown into the shed? Whose knife is this? Who's that Pokemon? A letter earlier mentions a second person on the island with an elephant. What if he orchestrated this whole thing so he could make a grab at a second elephant? We didn't even consider a third suspect. This isn't a cut-and-dry murder mystery. This is exactly what Vogel was talking about. Now this theme is ever present through the story cases. My first time through though, I sent Arthur to the gulag. He had more to gain without Gilden around, and more to lose if their relationship deteriorated even worse. But I'm still not sure. Oh well. The next case takes a different approach. Vogel sends us a stripper or something to invite us to his art gallery. Turns out he's been the victim of vandalism. Or so he thought. Turns out the vandalism was a cover to steal one painting in particular. This painting depicts a devil sexually assaulting a woman in front of a crowd. Pretty dark, but eventually you learn that painting is based on a photograph of an actual sexual assault. Looking up this devil at the City Hall records room reveals that this guy is actually 2 offices over in the building that you're currently standing in. That's right, he's the British envoy. The painting was stolen by a local crime lord in an attempt at blackmail. Both of them would really like the picture of the envoy currently in your possession. The true villain is clear this time, but the twist is the possible fallout from what you decide to do with this picture. The poor girl in the picture is a single mother now, and dirt poor. She lives in a shanty town under the bridge with other people from her country. They were dumped on Cordona with no attempt at legal immigration, so City Hall decided to section them off until they could figure out what to do. The envoy can't help just the girl because he believes it would give away what happened. But he claims he can help everyone in the village gain citizenship and jobs and whatnot. The crime lord, on the other hand, he can't pull that many City Hall strings, but he can set up the girl and her newborn baby to live like royalty. You could always give it to Vogel and have him run to the press. Sure, the envoy would get his comeuppance, but would anyone's lives be improved?
Mr. Vogel, I want you to make everything public, including the photograph. I'm sure you have a connection at the Cordona Chronicle.
Ah, Mr. Holmes. Loyal to your own truth till the end. Yes, I'm acquainted with the staff of the Chronicle. But you must be aware that exposing the scandal will further hurt the victim. Does that not bother you?
No matter what one does, the truth tends to come out, as well it should. I won't be the one to stand in its way.
Though it's only your subjective truth being exposed. Not that I'm judging. It's perfectly reasonable for everyone to have their own views.
When you called me, you knew exactly what you would get.
Oh, but I'm not like you, Mr. Holmes. I cannot be sure of anything. Regardless, I must thank you, for art's sake.
It's justice through truth, which Sherlock believes in, but does it help anyone? My first time through, I figured that helping everyone would be the best course of action. Give everyone a chance at a better life. But the envoy gets away with it. His only lesson learned is to make sure there's no cameras around next time. That's not justice, but is it the lesser evil? I could go round and round, but this is when the game works best. At first I was let down by these cases not being cut and dry, but on reflection they're way more thought-provoking than your run-of-the-mill who shot who and why deal. This is probably the high point of the story for me, and while the next case is certainly engaging, it lacks the same punch. Back at the Holmes estate, Sherlock discovers that one Dr. Richter had been attempting to medicate his mother after the death of his father sent her into an emotional spiral. She never had tuberculosis. She was suffering from a mental illness, something that gives Sherlock pause at the thought of his own mental state, imaginary friend and all. These attempts at medication ran afoul of Sherlock's older brother, Mycroft. He threatens to kick him out and sue him for malpractice.
Mycroft, what are you doing here? Get out of my house.
It's my house, actually.
He also stops by to say hey to Sherlock and talk him down from his memory recovery quest, but to no avail. I can't stop now. What's behind door number 3? This was a new character for me. I did not know Sherlock Holmes had a brother. He has a lot in common with his younger brother in terms of skills, but he believes they're better used in the service of Her Majesty. I actually love the idea of a bureaucratic Holmes, like pushing paper and running spy rings behind the scenes. He has the potential to be a great shady reflection of Sherlock. This guy would have loved the Patriot Act. Our final case is once again initiated by our best frenemy Vogel. An invitation to an Eyes Wide Shut party, complete with matching mask and robes. Like any good Tom Cruise orgy though, someone winds up dead on an altar. As I said before, this one didn't blow me away. It's not clear exactly who did it and why, but it feels like the old man in makeup did it. Again, it meets the usual theme here. Is it really justice if I'm not 100% sure the person I'm accusing actually did it? The best part of this case is the arrest montage that sees Holmes in handcuffs and a butler getting kicked down the stairs. Have a nice fall, idiot. Sherlock's motivation for dealing with this crap is twofold. First, the officer in charge of this case worked on the Violet Holmes case all those years ago. He knows how to get the skinny on what really happened to Violet Holmes. Second, Vogel has been considered a suspect for the murder. For some reason, Sherlock does not consider him a suspect, even though Vogel has now twice been at least nearby when this dark shit goes down. But whatever, it's probably this guy.
Oh, you did it, Sherlock! The case is closed and all rewards belong to the winner. Bravo!
It is merely the triumph of the truth.
Is it? No compromises? No lies? You're happy with your decisions?
Whatever the truth, it had to be revealed. The victim deserved it.
Well, you seem confident in the value of your actions.
The cop gives us the information we need, and we're ready to open the door to the garden. It's worth mentioning that something so traumatic happened out there that Sherlock forgot that the house even had a garden behind it.
There's a garden behind our manor. How could I forget?
That's some serious repression. This door, as John is quick to point out, holds the ending of the story. We have a few brief memories of the day Violet died before witnessing the last time Sherlock saw his mother alive. While wheeling her through the garden, the topic of Sherlock's father came up. Violet refuses to believe he's gone, just like she did to Richter in his attempt at therapy, and she lashes out. She drags the kid to the pond and attempts to drown him. When young Sherlock comes to, he sees Richter over his mother, now dead, and Mycroft attempting to remove the doctor at gunpoint. But what happened? Well, now we fill in the blanks. We learned earlier from the autopsy that Violet had what appeared to be a tracheostomy cut on her throat, so a possible life-saving attempt to a severe allergic reaction. Holmes recalls he, or maybe even John, gave his mother extra medicine that day to calm her down from a previous outburst. This doesn't look like an allergic reaction, though. Maybe it starts as soon as Sherlock closes his eyes, but I'm not convinced. Did Richter outright murder her? Did he kill her accidentally, pulling her off Sherlock? Well, we can't know that for sure either. Maybe she fell in with Sherlock, and the trach was a last-ditch effort to save her from drowning. We can't know for sure, but we have to come up with something. My first time through, I went with the drowning explanation. It just didn't seem like Violet had any problem breathing when she dragged her son into a pond. Next time, though, I went with the allergic reaction. Specifically that Sherlock caused it, and I have to say, I think I prefer that one. This is a good chance for Sherlock to walk the walk. He talks about objective truth, murder is murder, responsibility, all that. What would he do faced with a realization like this?
There is only one thing to be done.
What are you talking about?
To expect adherence to the principles of truth and justice, but to fail to hold oneself likewise accountable, it would be hypocrisy.
He plans to turn himself into the police, face a punishment for a wrong he committed, even if it started as an innocent attempt at helping his mother.
I was prepared to take responsibility for my actions, but again my brother conspired against me. A little diplomatic pressure and the trial was dismissed. Instead, I was exiled from Cordona.
No matter what your choice, Holmes meets with Vogel one last time as he says goodbye to his mother's grave. It's here we finally learn his true identity. He is none other than...
You are Klaus Richter, Otto's younger brother.
Yeah. Klaus is mentioned briefly in a file as the brother of Dr. Richter, but honestly I didn't mention him because it doesn't really matter. Holmes deduces Vogel's identity, but even Vogel doesn't seem to care.
Ha! There was no love lost between me and my brother. I am sure you can relate. Otto was merely the gravity that pulled me into your orbit.
Vogel wasn't out for revenge, he more did what he did for fun.
To see what had happened. Or is that yet another untruth? Doesn't matter. Take your pick. Who cares? You're my masterpiece. I turned Sisyphus into Ozymandias. You could not see the futility of your quest until I helped you to let go of the rock.
Just the love of the game. He set Sherlock on a path to change him fundamentally, and honestly, it kinda worked. He leaves Sherlock with a portrait of himself, a look of paranoia on his panicked face. This is the look of someone who's seen an eldritch horror. Oh, wait. Oh. Thanks for watching. If you like this, I do plan on doing more Sherlock Holmes stuff in the future. Also other stuff that I know a lot better. Fandoms and whatnot.
Goodbye.
Oh, on that note, I brought you something.
I want nothing more from you.
When one wants for nothing, Sherlock, the best thing to get them is something personal. So, here you are. Now, please excuse me, but the gallery calls. I'm already conceiving my next project. You really are beautiful.
Moo.